I love sheep shearing. I love being able to give back to that community in that way and to help these animals experience the relief of shearing.
It really is life-changing. I mean, it's not just the aesthetic, oh, look, it's great. It's shorn now. It's, but like it's a big deal. And that's why I also love what you do, because you're willing to like get in the thick of things and you care so much. And that's what really comes across, with your videos is how much passion you
Thank you.
have for, working with animals, doing what's hard to do. You do something that's hard to do. Hey, I'm Dr. Doug. I'm a chiropractor for both animals and humans. My life's passion is volunteering at farms and helping rescue animals in need. Join me as we connect with people who have dedicated their lives to helping animals. Together, we'll discover how helping animals live better lives will teach us to be better humans. Welcome to the Animal Cracker Podcast. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome Katie from Right Choice Shearing. This dynamic married duo travels across Texas, offering expert shearing services to farms and ranches. But they're more than just shearers. They're educators and advocates, spreading compassion and dispelling myths about their industry. With a massive following of approximately 6 million total followers across social media, specifically Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook, Katie and Darian show the world that wool doesn't have to be cruel. Together, they showcase the beautiful bond between humans and the animals in their care. Join us as we crush misconceptions, learn from their experiences, and celebrate the positive impact of Right Choice Shearing. So let's dive in. But today we have Katie. Darian won't be on camera with us. And is she around today, or where's Darian?
Darian is always around. We live in a tiny home, so she's in the office, which is right next door, working on paperwork. So she's always around.
Well, I'm really excited to have you on. And I've been following you guys for a while, and I just get entranced by the sound, the ASMR, the repetition, it's relaxing to me to watch you work. And I also know behind the scenes, because I've worked with sheeps and rams before, they're strong. And it's a wrestling match, but there's something poetic and beautiful about the way you work. Here, I'm doing all the talking. Why don't tell us a little bit about yourself, Katie?
Yeah, so I am 29 years old, and together with my wife, we run the world's largest agricultural YouTube page. So we're pretty proud of that. Never thought that was going to happen when we just started posting shorts or TikToks back in 2021, but it has grown exponentially, showing, like you've mentioned, the satisfying parts of shearing, and then also spreading education and awareness about what happens when you don't shear an animal. So that's what we're doing right now. In the spring, we shear. So about 4 months out of the year, we spend every day out shearing. It used to be 7 days a week, 14 to 18 hours a day, but that just took it out of us. We'd do 100 days straight. And by the end of it, you don't even know who you are, and you can't even communicate to your clients. You're so exhausted. But now we're doing 5 days a week so that I can start taking care of my body, because the first, 13 out of my 15 years of shearing, I did not think about treating myself like an athlete, and it just ran me into the ground. So taking more rest now so that we can get to more animals, because I've learned that I have to slow down in order to get to everything.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes we have to slow down to speed up.
That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, and be more efficient.
Yeah.
But through the self-care, take care of ourselves, and our production can go up in some ways if we don't abuse ourselves with overwork.
Absolutely. Just sleeping a set amount of time every night has made a big difference. Just getting a routine to where I'm caring for myself, because during season in the past, I really lost track of that, that I was a human being, because I was so focused to getting to as many animals as possible. And I just never thought that I needed that care, because I never learned that in my own household, how to take care of myself. I just thought that I should just be able to go all the time. So that was a hard lesson, but it's been a rewarding one, because as I've slowed down, I've really been able to hone my skill. Obviously, I have some skill that I've developed over the last 15 years of doing this, but to be able to really refine those patterns has been a game changer for me. And I enjoy work a lot more. It's a lot easier when you work with the animals and you have a set pattern that you do every time. But I didn't have any of that, because I didn't have anybody to teach me how to shear. So since I didn't have any formal education or a mentor, I was just winging it for a long
Mhm.
time. So now I'm really gaining the knowledge of what I'm doing, right? Trying to put that into words, because obviously I have this skill, but how do I communicate that skill to other people and pass on the safety and importance of shearing?
Reacting to that, how did you get started and how did you start shearing? I mean, I'm sure you weren't doing shearing when you're 5 years old, right? Like you
Yeah,
had to
absolutely.
you had to learn that craft, and you said you didn't really have an apprenticeship of any type, right? You
Yeah,
just
no, I faked it
yeah.
until I made it for sure. I was born from the son of a dairy farmer and a woman that came from small town Texas. They met in Korea while they were stationed there. They moved back, and little Katie was on the way. And so that farm boy moved down, but they still had the military to do. So they did a couple years of that. But once my brother got out, we moved out to some land because my dad wanted to get back out to the country, move away from the city. So they bought 15 acres and we leased it to the neighbors to run cattle on. We didn't even do our own ag stuff. We were just living on these 15 acres, right? A little slice of the American dream. So that became a lot more complicated when my dad became a civilian contractor right after 9/11. So dad was gone, mom was left with two kids and no knowledge on agriculture. And left unattended, we bought animals. So it starts with that, feed store chick and baby duck. And then 8 years later, it had exploded to basically two of everything, including llamas and alpacas. Obviously, my mom needed somebody to shear these animals, so she was on Craigslist and she saw that a lady needed her sheep sheared. My mom remembered that I had watched somebody shear a show goat just recently, and we obviously had all the equipment to do that because I was going to show a goat for the first time. And she's like, Katie, you know how to do this, right? And with the confidence of a 14-year-old, I was like, hell yeah. So we loaded up, me and a friend, and we went out, drove like an hour and a half away from our home, did seven sheep in 4 hours, and they looked horrible. They looked like chewed up foam mattresses. And the lady was stoked that we came out to shear her sheep. So she told all of her friends. And then there was a demand for shearing llamas and there was a demand for shearing alpacas. So, of course, I practiced on mine and then I went out and practiced on theirs. And my mom, she continued to take me around in my high school years. I equate it to like a child labor that she was like making money off the top, on the weekends, but I didn't care because I was out there having fun with the animals and I was making good money. But anyways, my senior year, she kicked me out of the house right after I turned 18. And it was over the relationship that I have with my now wife, Darian. We've known each other since we were 3 years old. So we've got like a really strong connection. But anyways, out of the house I went and she kept all of my gear. She kept my client list, she kept my blades, she kept my equipment, my partner's equipment at the time. So I had to start over. So I went back to Craigslist, started posting. I worked like 4 jobs during the summer between high school and going to Texas A&M. But I was able to build my business up to where I paid my tuition
Oh
through
wow.
A&M for animal science with
And
my shearing.
how far away did you move from your original home when you moved on?
For college.
Or just in general, like did you stay in the same town and try to work some of the same client base, or did you move away?
So what's cool about Shearing is our
Mm.
client base is basically nationwide. I can go anywhere that I want. I was doing 9 states back when we were running really hard, but my health kind of took a tank because I wasn't respecting
Mm.
my body or like my mental state. So I really took a tank for 2 years and we brought it back just to Texas. So I go all over the state of Texas. In fact, I spend 30 days in the Dallas area just doing work up there. But then I come back to the San Antonio area, which is about 5 hours south of Dallas. And I do most of my work from home now, which is really nice. Darian and I actually built a cabin on land that she grew up on. So we have like a home base that's paid for. And we just travel as much as we need to and don't have to worry about that, paying for where to live or an apartment or something like that.
Do people ever bring a truckload of sheep or animals to you to shear at your place?
When I was sick, they did. When I was
Mhm.
sick, we were basically like, hey, you can go find another shearer. We have this list that you can contact. Or if you really care about right choice shearing doing it, you can trailer your animals to us. And I did have quite a few clients that took me up on that. But regularly, no, I travel to all of my clients. The main reason that my business model works is these are small pockets of animals that they don't want to have to load up on a trailer and haul to a bigger shearing day. So it behooves them for me to come on a route and just hit them whenever I'm through. Instead of them having to load their animals up, burn a whole day on shearing. If it's a, 2 animal job, we're there for 30 minutes and they're back to whatever they were doing for the rest of their day.
Would you say the average time you need per animal? I mean, I know some are higher maintenance than the others, but like, what's your average time to shear a sheep?
So I'm pretty consistently between 90 seconds and 3 minutes. If it's a more challenging animal, then I'm looking at 5 minutes. And if it's extremely matted, which I just at the end of my season here did a run where it was a run is a scheduled shearing route. So that's the terminology for it. So I had a run where I had 3 days of basically just overgrown animals and took off 400 pounds of mats. But, at that point, it's taking me 15 minutes a sheep. And you would think, oh, that's pretty fast, right? But this is designed to be done between 90 seconds and 3 minutes. So if I'm bent over and the sheep's in that position for 15 minutes, that's 5 times my high average, right? So it's harder on my body, it's harder on them. And of course, we're fighting the Texas heat right now. So it's 90 degrees. We're all sweating. Well, the sheep aren't sweating because they don't sweat, but I'm sweating on the sheep. And, it's the time really depends on the condition of the animal. But sheep, 1.5 to 3 minutes on average, 5 if it's a challenge, 15 if it's overgrown. And llamas and alpacas, we handle that animal for about 10 minutes total and can typically shear a healthy one in about 5 minutes.
What do you do if the animal is not cooperating, like really squiggling and really wrestling you and fighting with all its might to break away from you, and you still need one arm to shear, right?
Right. If a sheep isn't particularly thrilled about the process of shearing and it wants to be what we would call a bit kicky, there's not really anything you can do besides wait it out. I mean, I'm not going to get my 90-second sheep if it decides that it's going to throw a fit. No, I'm going to take the 15 seconds to let it calm down and then get back in it. It's all about like a transfer of energy with any of these animals. And a lot of times you can feel the build in them or the nervousness, and you can feel the tension, and then all of a sudden it leads to an explosion. So they have a lot of energy to throw. And if I react to that energy, they're going to become more scared. That energy is going to escalate. What I do instead is I just relax my energy. I hold my position with the sheep, wherever it may be, and I just wait it out. And I just like relax my body. And then eventually it's going to stop and relax and see that I'm relaxed. It can be relaxed.
Yeah. I have a like similar experience because I'm an animal chiropractor and I'm working with animals. And a lot of times a big part of my work is going to these rescue farms, and I go as a volunteer, but they will give me a list of maybe 5 to 10, let's say, horses that I'm going to work on that day. And these are horses that are in pain. So they're having a bad day. So I'm not seeing a horse that feels great. I'm seeing an elderly horse. It was a rescue horse. It might have had a horrible life up to the time it got to this sanctuary. And they say, it's really sore. We could barely touch its spine area without it wincing or jolting, or we try to put a saddle on, it won't let us put the saddle on. So that's my starting point, is a horse that doesn't know me, a horse that is in pain, a horse that is older and maybe have riddled with arthritis, and also scary and suspicious of a newcomer coming in with male energy, like a lot of stuff stacked up against me.
And that animal's got a lot of meat. If it doesn't want you there, like it's gonna send you.
And it's much bigger than me. So I've learned a lot to soften my body language. I'm very aware of my body language. I'm very aware of how I approach.
I watched that podcast.
Yeah. And not to come in really like forceful or sometimes come in at a profile, a lot of different ways. I watch the horse's breath. I watch its eyes. I watch its ears. The ears come back. It might be getting angry and getting ready to kick me. I also ask for consent. And that's one of the things I always do in every video. That's become a kind of a thing. People comment back like, you asked if you could work with this animal, like consent. But I think it's as much for me to humble me and going, I'm asking consent, like, can I work with you today? Because I want the animal to think about that and to know that I respect them so much that I'm asking them, can I step into their space and maybe put my hands on them? And so I do that, and it's kind of a ritual for me in many ways, but it makes me go, hey, I'm here, and this is a big deal for them to let me touch them. And I'm here to serve them.
We get the same thing. We get the exact same experience.
Yeah.
We only deal with feral animals, basically, especially with llamas. We go out, and this llama's been in a pasture on 400 acres, and nobody has touched it. They barely got into a pen. It doesn't come to feed. It jumps fences. That's what we walk into all the time, and that is honestly where my passion lies. I love sheep shearing. I love being able to give back to that community in that way, and to help these animals experience the relief of shearing. But my real passion is working with llamas. When I started this at 14, I was much smaller than a full-grown llama, and I had nobody to tell me how to do this. So I had to learn to work with the animal. I had to learn to read its body language and
Mm-hmm.
where the pressure points were, or how it was going to move when I got to a certain point, where it was going to kick me, because llamas can kick 360 degrees. I mean, it's brutal. If you're not standing in front of them, they're going to nail you. So, there was a lot of like hard knocks lessons, and there were no YouTube videos. I looked.
And if you go to grab their back leg, are they going to pull it away and try to kick you sometimes? Because they're not used to having, like horses are used to having their legs handled because they get, trimmed.
Right. Nobody's working with this animal, but
Right.
I
No
argue,
one's really trimming a llama's feet on a regular basis.
no, nobody's touching them. Nobody can touch their llamas. I have people who ask me if they can pet their animal because they've never touched it physically before. And I walk in there into a pen. Darian does a beautiful job of just closing the space, kind of doing the same thing with consent. It's very slow motions. We go up to their ears. A lot of them are head shy, so they want to throw their head, but it's just teaching them that the hand is okay. She'll put a hand up the back of their neck, toss a rope halter on an animal that's never been haltered. Then we tie
Right.
it to a fence, and for the most part, they stand very well. Now, it's a 3-year process to take a completely wild llama and get them to where they stand. But like to be able to do that in 3 years, just seeing the animals 15 minutes a year is incredible. They're so smart.
And then eventually get to a point where they will stand still and let you shear them, right?
Absolutely. It's so cool to earn that kind of trust.
That is beautiful. Yeah. I mean, I do a lot of work with horses, but I guess where I get more of that feral experience, the way you described, is if I work with chickens and geese and turkeys and ducks, and which I do, and I pick them up, and they're not used to having someone stretch their neck and lift their leg and adjust their tail
Or
and
hold them.
or hold them. And or goats. I work with goats. I work with pigs. I work with a lot of animals that aren't used to having any body work,
Yikes.
or touching, other than maybe someone pushing them aside as they're walking through their pen.
Right.
Yeah, like shoo over here a little bit, move this way a little bit.
I
Um,
know that motion.
yeah. Have you had any bad kicks that or bites that you've had? They don't have to be that bad, but ones like, how often do you get kind of kicked at or bit at a little bit?
Well, the spit has gotten a lot better. The llamas and the alpacas both spit, and when they are angry and you're holding that lead rope and it's feral and they're just drenching you, it's bad. It's really bad. But you learn to like not mind the smell so much because it is like stomach acid. So think cow with a hole in its stomach. So the smell you get used to, but what you really get good at is learning where not to stand so that you don't get spit on. So I don't get spit on as much anymore now that I'm a lot more
Mhm.
mature. But bites are very rare. Llamas only have bottom teeth, no front top teeth, and then they obviously have their molars in the back. But they have these special teeth on the side that are called fighting teeth or castrating
Mhm.
teeth. And llamas in the wild and in domestication, they will actually castrate each other while they fight. So they've got some like wicked teeth that'll just tear you up. I had my brother he was on the back of a four-wheeler coming down a creek bed, and an alpaca ran down. Alpaca, small, fluffy, think it's cute, ran down, jumped on top of the four-wheeler, grabbed my brother by the arm and started pulling him off. And it took me getting in between him and the alpaca and like physically breaking them apart, because that alpaca was coming. But yeah, it tore up his arm pretty bad, but I've never been bit, luckily. The worst kick injury was when I was first starting. I was shearing in a chute. Everybody wants to put you in a chute because they think it's safer. But when you have all of that metal between you and the animal, it's a great crush zone, right? You put your arm inside that chute trying to get under the belly, you're going to get crushed. Well, I didn't have that knowledge, and I was shearing, and that llama kicked, smashed my hand between the shears and the chute, and it messed my finger up. It doesn't actually close right anymore.
Oh, wow. I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why I don't shear and shoot. So that was my worst kick injury. But we get kicked all the time, typically by babies, because they're like sneaky. You think they're cute, and then you come up behind them and it's bam.
Right.
But it's not too bad.
And I saw one of your videos where you showed some of your puncture marks. So you have some like little blood here, a little couple of stitches there. And
this journey for me has been hard because of no mentor and not having anybody that ever looked out for my safety. So I started this when I was a teenager. I kind of expected my parent or the adults in the situation to be able to look out for me, and they weren't. So I developed a lot of habits that could have been prevented if I would have grown up in a shearing shed or on a crew. So most of my injuries are from those types of accidents, just not following the safety. For instance, I cut open my leg while I was shearing one day. It was 10 o'clock in the morning, and I was a one sheep job. I was in a hurry trying to get to all the animals, and I decided I was going to shear in shorts and not put my pants on. So I went out there, started shearing. My cord on my clipper got caught underneath the sheep's body, and when I pulled it like this, I hooked my leg, and I put a gash about this big in it. Well, I don't have any insurance because I'm a rebel, I guess, or I didn't value my health. I still don't have insurance. But anyways, I called my veterinarian friend, and I was like, dude, I need stitches. And he's like, you better come in barking, Katie. And I was like, dude, this is serious. I need stitches. And he said, send me a picture. And I sent him the picture, and he's like, that doesn't need stitches. And I was like, you need to look at it again. And he was like, oh my God, that's on your leg? I was like, yeah, dude. And he's like, well, how far away are you? And I said, 2.5 hours, but I think I'm going to finish the day shearing. And he's like, all right, well, I got an anniversary dinner with my wife, so when I get back, I'll come and like meet you in the bunkhouse and we'll sew you up. So I finished it. I like wrapped my leg, finished the day shearing, come back. It's 10 o'clock at night. He's had a couple of drinks. We're laying on the bunkhouse couch, and he is stitching me up like he is spaying a dog, but I'm awake. And he offered me lidocaine, but I was like, don't you have to know where to put that? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, no, thank you. I'll pass. Just sew me up. So I took 22 stitches to the leg.
Whoa.
Yeah, no lidocaine. And that's probably my favorite scar, but that's just one of them. You know, another one, I had a machine lock up on me, and when it locked up, it spun out of my hand and hit me in the shoulder, hit me in the face, and then hit me in the arm before hitting the ground. And then it went off like a human blender. It just bam, 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 hitting the plywood. And we couldn't get it to turn off because it had wrapped my cord around the shaft that was now beating against the ground. So we finally unplugged it, and somebody pushed Darian out of the way because Darian was shearing right next to me, and she didn't even know what was happening. So they got her out of the way. I went up to the farmer, and I was like, I think it got me in the face. Am I bleeding? And he's like, yeah, but your arm. And my arm is just covered. There's kids here. This is an FFA, like lamb shearing. And so like these kids are now traumatized. I'm running around my truck screaming because I don't know how to, like, not screaming, but, you know, profanities, right? And walking around trying to walk it off. Darian cleans me up, and I was like, we got to go finish the job. So what did I do? I got back in there and I finished shearing the damn sheep. But I knew that if I didn't, I would be too scared to pull that cord again. Well, you know, I go home and I talk to my veterinarian again. I was like, do you think this needs stitches? And he's like, no, I think it'll heal without it. And I said, okay, good. Like, I'm not doing it again.
So you didn't do stitches then?
We didn't do stitches the second time.
You didn't meet at the bunkhouse for the stitching?
No. I passed right by the bunkhouse, went home and scrubbed that stuff. And when I was scrubbing my face, I noticed it bubbled. And I was like, oh, there's a puncture, but it hadn't gone all the way through my cheek. I went back to, and I was like, Doc, I think I have a hole in my face. Like, what do I do? And he's like, Katie, just keep it clean. You'll be fine. I said, okay. So I scrubbed it, healed, it scabbed, scab peeled off. There's a scar. I have a dimple now. I gained a dimple at 28 years old. Like, How
That's
cool is
awesome.
that, right?
That's good. You
Yeah.
who knew you would have a dimple that way?
Yeah, but I thought,
Yeah.
I was like, this isn't so bad. It could have cut my face open all the way, turned
Mm.
me into a Joker. It could have got my jugular, snipped my nose,
Right.
cut my ear, got my eye. So,
So
you
you got
know,
pretty lucky.
yeah.
Yeah.
And on day number 10, I developed a pimple, and so I was like I need to express this. So I grabbed a needle and I expressed it, and
Hmm.
the next day it was back. And I was like, oh no, I didn't go deep enough. So instead of going up and down, this time I went left and right, and it scraped against metal. And I was like, there's something in my face, and it's been there for 10 days now, right? I couldn't get
Whoa.
it out the hole, so I had to push my fingers together like this, and it popped out 50% of the way. And Darian leaves. She can't handle it anymore. After she saw me
Yeah.
break the scissors out, she's not even around. I was like, grab the camera, because I pulled it out. It was a whole tooth of the comb. It had snapped off in my face when it hit me.
Oh, wow. And
Yeah.
then it took 10 days before it surfaced in a way, or was ready to
Yes.
surface.
Yes. So
That's
again,
that's crazy.
another injury that happened because I didn't have the knowledge of the safety gear. I had a piece of equipment that's outlawed in other countries
Mhm.
to use, but it's still available to buy. So I didn't have that safety thing that allows it to pop apart and not turn into a human blender. But that's widely available, and any mentor could have given me that tip.
Yeah.
And
Do you
then,
think you'll ever teach at some point, or teach
good
people
question.
the journey that you didn't have, the
Absolutely.
mentorship?
I That's one of my visions for this whole right choice shearing, I guess, little
Mm.
universe or whatever you want to call it. It's so many different facets, right? It's my daily job, uh, and it's also a YouTube thing, but you can go with the day in the lives. Like, I've been recording a bunch of day in the life, so that's something we're going to have out. So you have the ride along series, and then you have the breed series where I shear different breeds and we look at the different types of wool. And then I've got another series where I'm kind of traveling through different countries and seeing how fiber is integrated into their culture. But what I really want to do is focus on the education. So, like, all of
Mhm.
that stuff is great. It really builds the right choice shearing, whatever it is, brand. But I would love if that could sponsor education. So I've got a
Mhm.
couple of ideas. Obviously, I'm doing shearing videos to teach people how to work with these animals. I'm going to do some llama behavior videos that's coming up,
Mhm.
and then being able to actually go out and educate people in rural areas what the proper shearing method is, because a lot of the people in the rural areas can't make it to the school. We already do teach a school in San Angelo. I've been
Oh,
teaching
wow.
that for
So
several
you're
years.
busy. Yeah, I'd
Yes.
imagine it would lend itself nicely to a retreat or something where everybody comes together for a long weekend or a week,
Well,
as
I would
well.
even love to
Yeah.
see, like, going out to different countries and bringing the method that is good for our bodies and good for the sheep to areas that don't even have that method yet, so that
Mhm.
are still shearing the old method, to be able to take the education and really go through the entire shearing industry globally and be able to rise all of the little crevices to the same information that we have available now. And it would really save the bodies of the shearer and reduce stress put on the sheep.
How about, is there any tools that are wireless, or do all of them have a
Mm.
hard cable?
Yeah, so shearing industry is like 100 years behind in a lot of things, especially here in the United States. Not so
Mhm.
much in the places where it's like unionized, but here in the United States, it kind of died out in the 80s and 90s with Scrapie. They came through and eradicated a bunch of animals based on their genotype, and it was the sheep and the goats of Texas and all of the mountain areas. So it reduced our flock down, and it reduced our shearers down, because obviously you don't have that demand anymore. So there's only one brand of handpiece that I use. They have not developed a cordless, and I think that's because now they have like battery pack ones, but you have to figure out where to wear the battery pack. And we have a shearing Facebook group, the Shearers USA, and they are constantly posting about the quality of the wireless products that we have right now, and it's
So
not good. It's
so
bad.
it's not there yet.
Not yet.
I had a question about, okay, so you go to, let's say, some smallish farm. Let's say they have 30 sheep. Here's the question, okay? And you take off the wool. How often do they want to keep the wool and do something with it? And do you ever, if they don't have any interest, do you take it, you say, well, if you're not going to just you're going to just throw in the garbage. I'd rather take it because I want to do something with this.
Most wool that I take off is going to be trash unless it's
Mm,
for a specific fiber flock. Now, those tend to be the ones that are in the 30 to 50 head herds where they
mm,
really care about the quality of whatever breed that they're raising up. And then they're very nitpicky. They want it taken off in a certain way and to not have any second cuts in it. So, those are like specialty, but most of what I do, it's all full of burrs, it's full of other debris, it's
mm,
often cotted. So most of it ends up going into the trash. But there is hope for that in the future. They've developed a technology called wool pellets. It goes through the same pelleting process that any feed does. But
mm,
these wool pellets could be added to gardens and hold moisture and be a good addition to the a supplement to the soil. And what they found is taking like seedling tomato plants to the point where you would sell them in Home Depot or wherever the closest garden store is. They've cut the time in half by using wool pellets. So like
mm.
this is a big game changer in the gardening market. So it could be a great place for trash wool to go, right? Because it doesn't matter. We're going to burn it all. We're going to burn out all of the vegetation at high heats when we pelletize it. So it could be an outlet for all of this wool that's been wasted. I just have to find time to explore it.
Yeah. How about is there a hazard for you to breathe the dust all day long every day 15 years?
Yeah, so my first year out
Because it's
shearing.
there's I've worked I don't take the I don't do any shearing, but I'm in with animals and there is dirt and dust all the time and I sneeze a lot or I'm like rubbing my nose while I'm working. I'm like I'm feeling it. And
Yeah.
but you're like much deeper than me into that, the particles.
And I don't know how many sheep barns you've been in, but a lot of the barns that I go to, their dirt is just finely ground manure at that point, and the
Yeah.
barns, this thick. So for my first, again, 12 years, I didn't take care of myself at all in that way. I didn't put any mask or anything on. But then I sheared for a client who was telling me that all of their old llama shearing friends, they are having respiratory issues from all of the fine fibers. I was like, you know what? It was COVID time. It's
Yeah.
really not much to just put that little mask up. And so now we do that. We shear with a mask. My eye doctor told me that I was getting calluses on my eyes. So I went ahead and started wearing safety goggles whenever I go up the neck and all of that particle falls into my eyes. I
Mhm.
don't wear anything when I do sheep though. And I probably should because of how dusty the barns are. But when you're at that high respiration rate that happens when you're just shearing, it causes the mask to be a bit damp and you almost end up like waterboarding yourself. So it's too hard to really implement while I'm shearing sheep, but I do use
Yeah.
it while I'm shearing
And
camelids.
and like you said, the Texas heat this time of year is probably pretty intense. So, it
Brutal.
just makes you sweat more. So there's always that. I also wanted to dip in a little bit to like, how is this working with animals? How has it touched you? And as a human, like you're a human working with animals, but I always feel like when I'm with animals, I become more human, or I learn more about what it means to be compassionate, to love unconditionally, to a lot of great lessons I learned from just hanging out with animals. Do you feel like that's been a big impact on you and your developments through your life as just who you are today?
Yeah, I would say that llamas raised me. That's how I feel. I feel like
Hmm.
they taught me a lot of really important lessons. Um, I got into this at 14, started reading body language at 14, started learning the transfer of energy at 14, and my home life was not great. The connection between me and that animal is very raw, and it's very trusting. So I think that feels good. You get that
Hmm.
sense of connection with an animal. There have been bad days where everything's gone wrong, and I get to the last job. It's actually happened, and there was a sheep there, and I was just having a bad day. I went and I one sheep job, I put her in my lap, started shearing her, and she like relaxed to the point of falling asleep in my arms while I was shearing her. And it was so calm. Like, and after
Mm.
everything I had gone through that day, it was just a hard reset. I learned through this job that there's a big difference between loving animals and respecting them. And I have a very deep respect for them and how they work and their feelings. it's weird to say, but when the animal that you're working with and you're currently connected with is upset, you feel that upset too. But as the person who has to be in charge and aware of all the safety, you just, I don't know, it's like a wall, it's like a mask that you step behind and you let their energy flow through you, right? And you show them that like you're still that calm presence. So that's taught me a lot. I definitely would not be who I am today without having that interaction with llamas in my life. There's something about walking into a pen of llamas, and there's always one. There's always the mature female, and she's standing in the back, completely calm, and she's just watching. And you almost can't even read her energy. She's just quiet. And usually the other llamas in the pen are like walking or doing circles or looking at me and putting their heads up and down. But she is calm behind everybody else, just watching. And I really have modeled who I want to be off of that llama, because that llama is the one what we always start with. When you shear a herd, you have to be cognizant of the energy for not just one animal, but for multiple animals. And then oftentimes you have a young one in there that's never experienced this. And so obviously they're going to be the ones that have the highest energy. But if I can find that mama llama and I can shear her, she's almost always perfect. She stands, she just listens, she pays attention to what I'm doing. And then after that, the rest of the herd watched. They watched their, what I would consider be alpha, go through the experience and not freak out. Now I start picking from least nervous on, and usually by keeping the energy low like that, we don't have any blow ups. And a baby can watch its mother, and if the mother is perfect, that baby will be perfect. And if the mother is batshit, a baby's going to be batshit. But it's cool to see that they're transferring that energy. And sometimes that mature animal will walk up and like nose tap another animal that it maybe is nervous while it's tied up, and that animal freezes. Like she nose taps it and they freeze. And then like 15 seconds later, you just see him stand up and relax. And you know there's some kind of communication going on there.
Oh,
And
there's so much communication.
being present for that, like that's, and being able to watch it, like that's the rewarding part. Like that's the amazing connection for me.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks,
I wanted to go back to something you just said that made me think of something, which is you were saying, and it might be my spin on it because I can't speak for you, but you were talking a little bit about loving an animal, respecting an animal, and also getting the work done. And I know that, like I don't love all the animals that I work on, but I respect all the ones that I work with. And what I mean is like, I'm just popping into their lives really fast, or I might have to see 20 animals in a day, ranging from chickens to ducks to a few goats, a cow, a steer to, and, I'm popping around trying to see as many as I can. And it's not like I have like like an outpouring of love in every moment. I'd be lying if I said that that's true, but I do have respect 100% of the time because I lead with respect, and that's a place that I go to immediately. There are a few animals that I go, oh, I would love to take you home. Like, they
be careful with those.
Yeah.
They end up at home.
Yeah. Like, and a goat in New York City is probably not the best animal for an apartment building.
Clinic goat.
Right. But I also had these great teachers, my veterinarian teachers, that also said you have to also get the job done. So I can't be so empathetic or so soft or so emotional that I don't really do what my job is that day, which is maybe help a medically challenged animal have a shift and maybe positively affect it so that it could get off that plateau where it's stuck in its healing process and push it back to healing again. And that's how I look at it. I mean, I can't always make a miracle in every moment, but I feel like if I optimize its pain pattern, its skeleton, its fascia, its alignment, release nerves and muscle imbalances, they have a chance to maybe move back on the healing track again. And that often does happen because I'm good at that. And you also have to be careful not to be with no empathy, where you are so distanced, which some healthcare providers go to that place. They're like, okay, I'm going to be so professional and so disconnected, but now you lost that. And when you do, that's when you get kicked and bitten and spit on or whatever, because you're now
You
so
need that
removed.
connection.
So you have to stay in there, and you have to stay in the heart space to have that balance. Because if you pull too far away, that screws it all up also.
Absolutely. I think that that's what gets misconstrued almost if you have a whole line of mentorship, right? Or
Mhm.
industries that don't really change much. It's because we're all learning from what this guy wrote down, a couple generations ago, and we've just held on to that. And there's been no need to look for anything different because that's what works. But being somebody who came from no mentorship, I had no bias. So
Mhm.
I just had to work with that animal against the Texas heat to get it done in a safe way that didn't work us up, because as soon as you get worked up, you get heat stressed out here. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, it's a lot of people see a flailing animal like a llama that's learning at the halter for the first time, because like I said, these are feral animals, never been halter broke. Put a halter on them, they're going to fight the halter. They're going to buck, they're going to kick at it, they're going to throw themselves down on the ground, and it looks really bad. But I know that if they get this out of their system, we can get them standing and calm. And then next year, they're not going to fight the halter.
Mhm.
And then the year after that, they're going to stand perfectly.
It would be fun maybe one day to meet up with you and just you know, do our
We can
day
talk
in
for
the
hours.
do a day in the life together. Like, I go with you, you're shearing, and then
Yeah,
you go, hey, look at that neck. And I ask the owner, hey, can I work on your sheep's neck? It's the crooked one. He goes, yeah, have at it.
dude,
And we
I could
and
totally line that
and
up. Come on
and
down to
we
Texas.
and we just hang out a little bit. Some people don't realize, like, a totally overgrown sheep or llama can also be dangerous, to leave them that way, or not being mindful and careful of the well-being of your animal. And so and the way it relates to me is, well, I often see horses' feet all the time, and an
Ugh,
overgrown hoof that needs to be trimmed is not just weird to walk on, but it literally misaligns bones, promotes intervertebral disc disease, advanced arthritis. The fur or the wool or the
fiber.
can be very important to the well-being. Do you think there's a time that it's almost detrimental to the animal to be neglected that far?
100%. So my mantra is every animal, every year. Some sheep breeds require twice a year, but as a like a general rule, we say every animal, every year. And that is my Texas area all the way up to Missouri. I will preach that. I don't have a lot of experience closer to Canada. So some people
Mhm.
say that llamas can go every other year closer to the Canadian border, but down here in Texas, not an option.
And
Human
okay, and
blood
I'm
has
I'm gonna I'm gonna ask you like a probing question. Why? What's the ramification of letting it go 5 years? Like, why is that a bad thing? I know
right.
the answer, but I want you to tell us the answer.
Heat stress is a horrible, horrible way to die. It is excruciating to watch. I've never had an owner come back with anything like, oh, that wasn't too bad. No, it changes their life to watch their animal die from heat stress. And heat stress is when the body, the temperature inside gets too hot, and then you start getting things like fried brains, or, really that their hearts will give out if they're too stressed. So it's really a horrifying thing to watch. They get really lethargic. They can't get up. There's nothing that you can really do for an animal that's in full fleece, because you're not going to be able to cool them down. You have to get in there with shears and get it off. But at that point, you're dancing with the devil on time. I say that my top priorities when handling an animal is first stress. So I'm
Mhm.
constantly watching them to see how's their lip doing, how are their eyes doing, how are they breathing, and sometimes I have to dance that fine line of this animal is starting to get heat stressed, but I am so close that I need to get it done so that I don't have to handle it again. So it's a
Mhm.
fine dance. For sheep, how their wool works is it insulates both ways, right? So keeps some of the heat away from them, but also keeps the heat trapped in the winter. So it's breathable, but the llama fiber, the camelids, a camelid is in the group of llamas, alpacas, and camels, so they all spit. But anyways, a camelid, their fiber traps in the heat like a vacuum. And when you take that first swipe down the back and it opens up, you can just feel this humidity coming off the animal. And the more fiber that's there, the more that heat is trapped in, and the body has to use its energy efficiently. So
Mhm.
typically when we talk about energy, we talk about the feed consumed and then growing into whatever that animal's stage is. So different stages may be when they're young and they're growing. It could be while they're milking or while they're pregnant or while they're just maintaining. So they've reached maturity and they just have to maintain their body weight. But now, when you have all of this weight, instead of just focusing, the thing that you start with on the energy is basic body maintenance. So they use up a bunch of energy just to breathe, just to get that heart pumping, just to exist. Now, the next thing they do is put that energy towards growing. That could be growing a baby, growing themselves, growing wool, whatever. But when you have all that matted wool on there that's keeping all of that heat trapped in, the body's still working hard to thermoregulate, and it's burning a lot of energy trying to burn heat through respiration and whatever else. So that animal starts to need more and more energy just to exist. And then on top of that, if they want to get up and graze, they're burning even more energy. So they can't consume enough energy. They start losing weight. They become very thin. Then eventually they'll become anemic. And then their little hearts give out because they can't
Right.
thermoregulate anymore.
So it really is life-changing. I mean, it's not just the aesthetic, oh, look, it's great. It's shorn now. It's, but like it's a big deal. And that's why I also love what you do, because you're willing to like get in the thick of things and you care so much. And that's what really comes across, with your videos is how much passion you
Thank you.
have for, working with animals, doing what's hard to do. You do something that's hard to do, and it's hard to do it well, and it's hard to do it day after day, hour after hour in the Texas heat or wherever you wind up doing it. And I just admire and respect you guys so much. I don't know what you do. Like, I haven't done it, but I've been close enough to know that you guys are doing a heck of a job. And, I know how tricky it is for me to work with animals, and you do it at a different level. So
Thank you.
thank you so much. And I hope to work with you again sometime, and maybe I'll take you up and come out to Texas and we'll spend a day.
Yeah, man, or find me a sheep to shear in New York.
All right, that would be cool.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. So,
right.
And that's one of the goals too, is to be able to eventually go around and get to all the animals that are in need of a good shear. But we'll see how it goes.
All right, thank you so much, and send my regards to Darian. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Doug. We'll see you down the road.